Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Mourad Dakhli, Professor of International Business and Director of the Master of International Business here at Georgia State, and I am the moderator for today's session. On behalf of the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, Georgia State Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies Program, and GSU Study Abroad programs, I'd like to welcome you to GSU Fall 2022 Global Career Series, an International Education Week event. This series features representatives from globally connected organizations to talk to students and recent graduates about rewarding opportunities to work in global spaces and with international population in Atlanta, in the US, and abroad. We hope you will feel inspired to expand your horizons and to pursue global careers, internships, and volunteer opportunities. Before we begin, we want to get to know you a little bit better. You will see a poll pop up on your screen. Please answer a few questions about yourself. We'll share the results in a few minutes. All right, so as you are completing the poll, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, this session is being recorded. We ask that you keep your mics muted to reduce any noise during the presentations and discussions. All Global Career Series videos can be found on YouTube by following the link in the chat, and the link will be shared in the chat about now. There will be about 30 minutes for Q&A after the panelist presentations. Type your question in the chat at any time, and we will do our best to answer all questions. Today's session will focus on global commerce and trade, with representatives from the Metro Atlanta Chamber Global Commerce Office and the U.S. Department of Commerce International Trade Associations, and a couple of our star students. Before we introduce our panelists, let's quickly take a look at the results of our poll. So let's see here. Here we go. So about 3/4 of you are undergraduate students. The rest, alumni. Nice to see, about 25% of you are our own alumni, staying connected. That's wonderful. Let's see. Wow, the absolute majority here, again, 3/4 is from the College of Arts and Sciences. That's wonderful. And I'm glad to see our own Robson College of Business. That's about 1/4 of you, business students. And we'll see. Okay, as far as the majors, let's see here. Life, physical, and earth sciences. That's about 1/4 of you. Social sciences, that's another 1/4 there. And well, it's quite evenly divided here. Public health and business and finance. Okay, so that's a little bit more diverse there when it comes to majors. And let's see, what is your primary reason for attending? All of the above. That's wonderful. So you are all interested in volunteer opportunities. That's good to see. Internships, work, and advice for starting global career. You are in the right place. You are absolutely in the right place, and a few others in there. So that's quite interesting there. Let's go ahead and look at what our panelists have to say, and regarding some of the points you have just mentioned here. So I'm delighted to introduce our panelists now. John Woodward is Vice President of Global Commerce at the Metro Atlanta Chamber. Welcome, John. Joshua Kaplan is Director of the U.S. Commercial Service Export Assistance Center at the U.S. Department of Commerce, International Trade Administration. Welcome, Joshua. And with us also today is Panida, a graduate of the Master of International Business, a recent graduate, and congratulations, Panida. She just secured a job, and she will be starting in a few days here. So we'll get to hear more about that. All right. So I'd like to ask each one of you to introduce yourselves and to tell us about your organizations and what you do. From there, we will launch into the Q&A portion of the program. Let me go ahead and start maybe with you, John.
Thank you, Mourad, and good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be back. I did this last year. I think I did it with Josh, as a matter of fact, so it's good to have him on the panel with me. And congratulations to Panida. I'm looking forward to hearing about that. I'm John Woodward. I head up the global commerce team at the Metro Atlanta Chamber. the Metro Atlanta Chamber is the Chamber of Commerce for the Atlanta region, the metropolitan region, which comprises 29 counties. And I head up the international team within the Economic Development Division of the Metro Atlanta Chamber. So we'll go into more details, I guess, later, precisely what the team does. But the bottom line is we focus on cross-border trade and investment within the realm of economic development for the region. And again, can go into that a little bit more. The Chamber is a private nonprofit organization, basically represents the business community of the metropolitan area. We work closely with the government sector, certainly with U.S. Commercial Service that Josh represents, and with others, with state government, with local governments. But we are not a government agency by choice. We don't take government funding. We're funded by the business community, representing the business community. And again, I'm within the Economic Development Division of the Chamber. The Chamber also has a public policy division and a sports division, actually, presently working on the 2026 World Cup right downtown here at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So that is what the Chamber does, or I'll go into more of what we do, but that's who we are. My own background, I've been in this role for, 15 plus years in various capacities. As I say, now I head up the international team, started as a foreign investment director. Prior to that, I was in economic development in Virginia. And prior to that, I was in commercial real estate with Cushman & Wakefield in New York City. Did grad school. That was after graduate school at NYU in New York City, where I got an MBA in international finance. And then prior to that, my undergraduate was in Washington, D.C. at Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. And then between the interim period between undergrad and graduate, I was a foreign exchange trader. So that's my background. There's a big international component to it. Although a lot of landing in this job here involves some serendipity, and we can go into that as well. Although it looks like it was very well planned out. But yeah, so that's in a general who I am, and I'm not sure, Mourad, if you want any more from me, or we can just chat more at the during the back and forth.
Yes, we should have more time. I hope toward the end to get to know you a little bit more, and especially about your career trajectory. That we'd like to loop back to that maybe in a few minutes there. Right. Josh, I want to pass along to you, and we would like to ask you to share the same.
Yeah, thanks, Mourad, and I'm happy to be here as well. I'm actually joining from Kansas City, Missouri, and it may seem a bit odd. Why am I talking to you from Kansas City? You're in Atlanta, but I'll explain that a little bit further here. And if it's okay, I'd like to share my screen and just kind of go through a few items to describe our organization and my work here. And so I will go ahead and do that now. Or at least attempt to. Okay, so I work for the, John mentioned he's a private sector organization. I work for the federal government, for the Commerce Department, for an organization called the International Trade Administration. I have been with the federal government for around 15 years. My current agency about 8 years, and have had different roles related to international trade. So I am going to just describe a little bit about the International Trade Administration, what we do. I'm going to share one example of a type of career that might be of interest to students or recent graduates that's involving the Foreign Service. Then I will also talk about just a few current and upcoming employment opportunities, and just share my contact info. So I'm not going to read off this slide, but really, if you think about our mission, the International Trade Administration, or one of the bureaus of the Commerce Department, we have about 1,500 employees, and the employees are located in the DC area, but also actually across the country and around the world. And so that's something that maybe people are not familiar with. The focus of the International Trade Administration is on strengthening the US economy through international trade, both related to exports as well as trade coming into the US. And there are 3 business units, and I'm just going to touch upon those briefly here. So the first business unit is called Global Markets, and that's where I am housed. We're focused really on export promotion. And I'm going to talk about some skills maybe that are involved in these different types of roles. So for our organization, for our business unit, a lot of it is focused on relationship building. It's focused on outreach. It's focused on getting to know your community and your partners. And then it's focused on project management. I would say those are definitely skills that have been handy for me and I've seen in others as well. And positions are really worldwide for our business unit. You can be located in the DC area, but most of the footprint is actually, there are over 100 offices across the US, including in Atlanta. And I know John has worked with some of my colleagues previously. And then there are also offices in over 75 countries around the world. The next unit, just to touch upon, is one actually focused a bit more on research and writing. I know different college students kind of have different focus areas or even different personalities. And so that's really focused on developing trade policy, making sure that the US government has the best information for making policy decisions to maintain our position in the global economy. And those positions are primarily in the DC area. And then the last unit is called enforcement and compliance. And that's actually focused on the import side. And that's a lot of data analysis, a lot of spreadsheets and other tools that are used to determine if goods coming into the US are competing fairly. And those jobs are based in the DC area as well. Now, just one example I wanted to share and highlight. This is actually my colleague, Rhonda Singfield, who was on this panel last year with me. She's currently not in her position in Atlanta, but she is a Foreign Service officer, and she is one of a group of over 200 Foreign Service officers who work for the Commerce Department and who are posted around the world. And they're really focused on representing the United States business community in other countries. So some of those in attendance here might be familiar with the Foreign Service. You tend to live in a country in a posting for 2 to 4 years, and you move around the world, and it's very exciting and engaging work. And for someone who's looking to work overseas and really sort of be a vocal in the business community in another country, learn about another culture, that can really be a great opportunity. You see here a little bit of information about the application process. There will be another round of applications coming on next year. And so then just this next slide here, we were asked to kind of share something fun and interesting. So you can't really see it that well, but I have an arrow drawn to a picture of myself. And this is me with a trade mission in Serbia. I think it was in 2018. And I was in a room there with a sort of a delegation, and I think it was actually a Serbian chamber group. There was a press conference and so on, but that's not really what's interesting about this. When I was in Serbia, I don't know if anyone follows tennis, but apparently I resemble Novak Djokovic. And so when I was there, just taking a cab or just kind of walking around, people look at me and then they start talking to me, sometimes in Serbian even, because they think maybe I look like someone who's from there. And they ask me if I'm related to him, if I know about him, you know, what's the connection there? So you travel abroad and you interact with different people and you have these kind of really neat interactions, these really neat engagements that you wouldn't expect. And that's just kind of a side benefit that I enjoy, is just seeing different people's perspectives when I'm traveling for work. So, you know, that's just a really just kind of quick and dirty overview. You'll see here some examples. I'm happy to share more information later. Exactly, Laura. Yeah, thank you. He is more fit, I think, and probably better at tennis. But at any rate, so we do have positions available now, even on USA Jobs. There's ongoing hiring kind of in this current upcoming months there. So it's worth exploring. And then just connect with me on LinkedIn, send me an email. We do have an office in Atlanta. I'm sure they'd be happy to meet with folks who are interested in our work. They do have internships there as well, I understand. So yeah, let's stay in touch. I look forward to the conversation. Thank you, Mourad.
Very good, very good. And we'll look back to some of these points that you just mentioned, by the way, especially the skill side of it and some of the experiences you know, you and John had. And I'm going to ask Panida now, who's with us. Thank you, Panida, for joining us today.
All right,
Just
thank you,
share
Professor.
something about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so again, my name is Panida, and I just recently, I'm the M.I.B student in class of 2022, and now I just got a job, and I'm now just moving to Maryland, will start my new job next Monday at Eastland Food Corporation. So basically, for Eastland, the company export and distribute the high quality Asian products throughout the states to the U.S. and to over 50, let's say like 50 states, and to also other countries, South or even Central America. Also, but before I came to the US to pursue my master, I used to work at the US Embassy in Bangkok before for around 11 years as procurement manager. So So we procure or purchase products, basically 90% of the U.S. products, and from a U.S. supplier, also international products from other countries as well. So let's say like 5 countries, and that's make me interest that I really enjoy working and do the business, or with the suppliers, different meeting with the different department in the States and in the U.S. Embassy, even like, for example, U.S. Commercial Service, Foreign Agricultural Office, and also other agency that facilitate or import and export. Also, as our U.S. Embassy Bangkok is kind of considered as a big hub for regional. So we also, after we purchase products from the States, and then we also distribute to other region, also like Burma or Vietnam or Laos. So it's just about me. And I think for me, international business, especially at Georgia State University, is even I got an interview, and they also asked me to what you learn from there. So I told them everything for all the costs and what you will learn. And of course, I have the experience before. So this is, I think for me, I can share a lot of things with all of you. So yeah.
Very good.
Thank
Very
you.
good. And a note of disclosure, Panida was my student, and she was a star student. Very good. So I'm not
Thank you.
surprised that you landed a job that you really wanted from the beginning. They're lucky to have you. All right. So let me start the conversation here. And John, I'm going to start with you. And I'm going to take you back in time. I'm not saying you're old, but I'm going to take you back.
Don't be too far off. That's all right.
All right. Maybe the time when you were a new college graduate, what do you wish someone had told you back then that would have helped you make a wise career choice, or help you make the career choices you've made?
Well, I would say, number one, it seems to be what this group is already doing. I was, how shall I phrase this, somewhat remiss perhaps in my career planning during undergraduate. And so I think, and it was a bit back in time. To be honest, I was having a ball in college. It was great. I was in DC. DC is a great place to go to school in, a great place to do work in. I just was not really planning, what I wanted to be when I grow up. So to the extent we have, what was it, 75% of these are undergraduates already on the call here. To the extent we have this large group of undergraduate students already looking into this, I would say the group is already a step ahead of where I was. I should have done that more. And then the other is related to that, and that is figuring what you want to be when you grow up. But then related to that is what is it? And this is classic, thing. What is it you enjoy? Where do you find that interest? And Panida, was interesting story you just told about your background, and clearly qualifications for that. And obviously, I would infer anyway that you enjoy that. And I would just submit that as you're thinking of that career choice, now that you have some flexibility in your choosing a career, go after one that you enjoy doing, or that interests you, that keeps your interest to the extent you can, because of course that makes that search process easier, and if you land something in that's better, and you tend to be, if you enjoy it, you tend to be better qualified in it. Frankly, you just know more about it. So that would be something I guess I would suggest.
Very good, very good. Thank you, John. And Joshua, I'm going to also ask you the same question.
Okay, well, thank you, Mourad. And so I had the fortune of kind of thinking about my response while John was saying his. And I guess I would maybe say that, thinking back to what I was doing in college and maybe shortly thereafter, and I think for a lot of people, it really ends up being what you do at that time in your life really ends up putting you on the path that you are on, indefinitely. And that's just to say, even some of the student groups that I was involved with in college. So I went to the University of Kansas, which is maybe similar size to Georgia State, kind of regional, sort of a wide group of majors. I was in the business school, but I actually got pretty involved in student government, in sort of the business fraternity there. Some other groups that allowed me to start working on, a lot of the skills that I feel like I still use to this day, which would include relationship building, which would include meeting with new individuals and working on a project together. That can start pretty early on, and I wouldn't discount the opportunities that exist even while one is in college to start building that skill set, and then learning how to talk about it with others, what you've learned. I think to some degree that can set you apart from just someone looking at your grades or maybe which internship you had. Those skills you continue to build on those your whole life, and it's not too early to start in college.
Very good, very good. I'll go ahead and I know many of the students who joined us are interested in careers, as you saw, and in jobs. And maybe look back to John and ask you, in your opinion, how important it is for graduates today, when they enter the job market, should they be well versed in global economics, trade relations, international business? Should non-business majors even consider applying for federal or local positions that are in international trade agencies and the likes?
Assuming that most of the folks are on the Global Studies Week, I believe it is, or the international. This is obviously an internationally focused group. So I would have, and again, I would assume they're looking to go into an internationally related job. If that's the case, absolutely, I would say be aware of global economics, and not just for the job, but frankly, just in general, where things are going. I just think that is there's no, let's be afraid, there's no downside to knowing global economics, to just being aware of it, being cognizant of it, seeing what's going on around, and it just becomes more and more relevant. So whether or not you're going into an international field, you should be aware of it. I would say certainly if you're going into an international field, it's good to be aware of it. It might be overwhelming to try to do all things at once. For example, but as I mentioned earlier, if you have a particular focus, at least be aware of that geographic area. That could be that industry area, or the trade relations of it, or something like that. So I'm a big, now I'll caveat that I'm something of a nerd. I'm a news junkie. And believe it or not, I'm actually a newspaper junkie. I still read a newspaper. I have a paper right here in my office. So I might be something of an anachronism, but certainly, follow the news. As I say, it couldn't possibly hurt you. And if you want to go in the international field, it can only help you. As far as the majors are concerned, Mourad, to be honest, I was a liberal arts major. I was, and I went in and I got my MBA in international finance. I'm not saying that was easy, but I went from liberal arts to finance because I wanted to diversify my skill set. But I started up as a liberal arts major in undergrad. It was European history and diplomacy, so it was a thing. But yeah, I did that, and then I did go into finance. But you do not have to be. I think your question was, do you have to be a business major? No. I think having a good background that gives you, and Josh alluded to it in his comments, gives you that well-rounded base that's applicable for international, being aware of what's going on, being able to communicate and converse the ideas, which perhaps I'm not doing well right now, but that actually is a skill set. So all those I would suggest, and they don't have to be business major. They could be a liberal arts major. I saw some life sciences people, I think, in the poll at the beginning. And again, that can go toward a particular sector. I'm assuming if one is a life sciences major, that's their field of interest. That still can very much be international. I was talking with an international life sciences company just this morning. So certainly all of these are applicable toward an international career. So I wouldn't say it needs to be limited to one major or another.
Yeah, and to your point, John, we're looking at the foreign direct investment coming into Georgia. You see companies from every sector pretty much, and they are seeking that type of talent that's internationally oriented, but has some type of anchor within a specific field. And we see media, we see life sciences, we see technology. So
that's correct.
Joshua, in your opinion, can you add to that?
I share a lot of the same views as what John just expressed. I'm not someone who believes like what you studied in school specifically, or what it says on your resume is perhaps the most important indicator for how you're going to succeed in international trade. It just requires certain I don't want to say personality traits, but certain characteristics that lend themselves to this type of work. Would include flexibility, curiosity, learning about different people in different parts of the world, and really just an interest in connecting with others. I think that's really important. And I feel like you can probably get that type of experience through any major. I don't view it as one that's being restricted to business majors at all.
Very good. Very good. I want to ask a question, but something that's very dear to me. I study abroad, and I lead actually a study abroad program in different places around the globe, especially in Africa. And how do you see study abroad preparing students for potential jobs in your organization? Do you see any value to those experiences in your context? And maybe I'll have you, Josh, so that you don't take the benefit of listening to John's answer all the time.
Oh, sure. Yeah, make me thankful. This one, I feel like I'm pretty well equipped to answer. I had the privilege or the fortune of doing 2 study abroad experiences while in college. The most, I would say, informative or beneficial experience for me was I actually did an internship at the very end of my college tenure in northern Mexico for the U.S. government for the agency that I work for now. And so this was, I mean, I'll date myself, I don't care. This was maybe 17, 18 years ago. And that really turned me on to this work. I really, really enjoyed it. The people that I worked with at that time are still in those roles. And so I still have relationships with them. And I've just sort of, that has put me on the path that I'm on now. So I think the trick with study abroad is, of course, it's not easily accessible for everyone. There are financial considerations, there are other challenges, maybe family considerations. I feel like hopefully there are some ways to mitigate some of that, and there is support out there. I'm sure Georgia State has programs, but I would definitely encourage it. It's really a time to find yourself, to see what you like and don't like in terms of international work, and it's a lot of fun too. And I don't want to discount that for someone when they're in college. That's pretty important for your decisions that you make. Make sure that you enjoy them.
Yes, yes. John, your opinion on study abroad?
I think Josh and I are going to be very similar in our opinions here. I'm a big fan of it. If you can do it, I certainly acknowledge what Josh did is not financially sometimes it's difficult. There are different ways to get around that. I also had the benefit of studying abroad. It was immeasurably valuable. That's one of those things, back to your first question, Mourad. If someone had told me, if I listened or someone told me, I said, appreciate your study abroad while you're there. I did a full year, not just a semester abroad. Again, that's not an option. I actually took leave of absence from my university, from Georgetown University. I matriculated directly into the University of Strasbourg in France because France was my main language. I wanted to learn German as well. That's why I chose Strasbourg, which is right on the border in Alsace. Interestingly, by matriculating directly into a French university, I was part of the French university system. I paid French university tuition, which was a lot less expensive than Georgetown University tuition. So it wound up, I really wasn't that clever. I did not pre-think that. I was just trying to do something independent, but I wound up saving a whole lot of money because I was on the French university system. So I'm not sure if some of these options, this was a little bit further back from what Josh was referring. It was back in the 80s, in the late 80s. But certainly there are different ways. I mean, frankly, overseas universities are often far less expensive than American universities. And if you can do that somehow. Now, Mourad, obviously, Georgia State, I don't want to steer people away from Georgia State's study abroad programs, which are excellent. So, but if it can be done, especially if you're interested in the international field, international jobs, then definitely try to make it a priority. It's immeasurable benefit. Appreciate it while you're there. Some of the study abroad programs, people just treat it as a long semester vacation or something like that. And I encourage you to get into the weeds, get into things. That we didn't have social media back then, so I had no choice. I did, but it was a good thing. And so I just can't recommend it enough. I did it both with undergraduate and with graduate. I did undergraduate a year abroad, my junior year abroad, and I did graduate semester at HEC, Institut Commercial, which is business school in France, and I did a semester there. again, keeping there, and French was my main focus, French business. So so there was some design to that by the latter stage, but absolutely it's invaluable if you can do it.
Very good, very good, excellent. Panida, did you do a study abroad? Did your in your education earlier or later? I know you traveled, obviously, but kind of your thoughts.
I personally, I never studied abroad before, so I can say this is my first yeah, I came here, that's my first study abroad. But yes, I got a chance to travel for pleasure and for work a little bit. And I think I fully support if the students can, like have a chance, the opportunity. I think this is a great opportunity. Even for me, I have some friends that used to study study abroad in other countries. And beside their, let's say the cost itself is also like, you will get a lot of like knowledge from like culture, even the perspective of that country that you go. And of course you will have a lot of connection, and that will help you like grow. And of course in your mindset, you will open, for many things, like for language, for culture, for diversification. And that can help you a lot. Since for me, compared to me, when I came here and in my class, so basically we have so many students from many countries, and that can help you. Once you open your mindset, that can help you, to learn and to know people more. And I think that's just the start. And if you have an opportunity for a study abroad, please go for it. I fully support that.
Very good, very good. And I see your point, Joshua, on here too. You recommend a host family, and I think that's a great thought. I did talk to students who had that experience, and you really get into the culture, and I'm sure it adds another dimension altogether to the experience of the faculty-led. I must say that kind of plug in for our study abroad team here at Georgia State. They do an amazing job. We have a team of advisors to guide the students through these. We do a lot of cutting-edge consulting projects and life cases in our study abroad, in addition to just visiting companies. But something also I want to make sure I mention here. Scholarships are available, and I know I had on my program students who were able to join these signature kind of life-changing experiences because of scholarships. So that's one thing that students really need to explore as they plan for their international careers. Maybe just one question, an extension related to our study abroad discussion. Of course, not everyone, as you mentioned, can take time off, and let go of 2 weeks or 3 weeks of work or semester. What other experiences do you think you two might look for that might also kind of give the assurance that this is a person with an international orientation and interest? John?
Is that an open question? All right.
Yeah.
Well, there are a couple. There are a few, and I'm just top of my head here. It doesn't have to be a whole semester or a whole academic year. There are educational and cultural opportunities that, again, especially if it's of interest to the students in question, that if they can somehow manage it, then that would be something you could show to a potential employer that indeed your interest is there. You proactively pursue this international interest. I would suggest also a much easier way, quite frankly, it's much closer to home, is get involved with some of the international organizations that are right here in Atlanta, in Metro Atlanta, and there's a whole host of them. In fact, there could be an entire seminar on those, but just to give you some general overviews, there's a slew of binational chambers of commerce, for example, the French American Chamber, German American Chamber, the Swedish American Chamber. These are most of them are run by volunteer boards. I'm on the volunteer board of 3 of these actually, and they will have events. They'll have business events, cultural events that take place right here in the backyard, that are generally, if not free, certainly very inexpensive to go to. Just a case in point, the Beaujolais Nouveau for the French American Chamber is coming up in just a couple of weeks, of course, with Beaujolais Nouveau. And so that's something, if you're interested in that, go to the French American Chamber of Atlanta website and look up Beaujolais Nouveau and go to that. Or they have I'll stick with this. They have business and academic and cultural things. Both the French American Chamber, which has different opportunities throughout the year. There's also, in the case of France, there's a program called France Atlanta, franceatlanta.org, I believe it is. That's done. Georgia State is partly a partner in that. Georgia Tech is a partner, the French consulate, our office, and others. And that's a 2-3 week long program of various cultural and academic and business programming that takes place almost entirely here in Atlanta, sometimes with Zoom or Teams back in France. That's just an example of the French side. The Swedish American Chamber has the Lucia event, or has a Swedish Day, or they have events with their Swedish companies. And a thing too about the binational chambers is, if you're interested in some of those areas, that's connection within the business community of that area. Mm-hmm. So the Swedish American Chamber of Commerce has, I'm on the board of that one too, it has members that are not all the Swedish companies in the region, but it's some Swedish companies in the region, Elekta, Skanska, others. So again, by involving oneself, even as a student, in some of these programs, in some of these binational chambers, you don't have to buy a ticket. You don't have to go overseas. You don't have to worry about that. You can still stay, obviously, doing your regular stuff here in Atlanta, but go off to an event here or there, get to know the folks. Sometimes there are internships with these. They're usually not paid. Many of these are on a shoestring budget. Yes. But it's a means, a very easy and inexpensive means of getting into these and showing some of your international involvement. There are others, of course, as well. I know Georgia State University has a robust international community and international student groups. And that's something that, kind of studying abroad is great, but I realize that's a big nut to crack. These are some ways of doing it that can be easily accessible. It can show what's going on. Just real quick to go on, there's some of the European chambers to get together, and they have a young professionals networking session. So I think it's the Dutch and the Belgian and the French and the German chamber and the Swedish chambers all get together, and they have a young professionals networking. And I mean, it's, I don't know, $20, $30 is up at Fido, sometimes in Buckhead or something like that. And you get together, and there's other young professionals. I'm usually not included because people accuse me of not being either one of those, but they're young professionals, and it's a great way to again come in, get into that network, bring a couple of your friends if you like, if you don't want to immediately go in by yourself, and it's an easy, inexpensive way right here at home, and it doesn't interfere with your studies or anything. And lastly, I'll add, it occurs to me as I'm talking, right here in downtown, and my office is in 191 Peachtree. I could look out my window and see Georgia State's campus, so I know the downtown area. Right next door to us is Peachtree Center, which I'm sure Georgia State students know. Peachtree Center, the big office complex. The Goethe Institute and the Alliance Française, which are the German Cultural Institute and the French Cultural Institute, respectively, both just opened a joint space at Peachtree Center, at the hub of Peachtree Center there, where the kind of where the fountains are there. That's a French cultural center, German cultural center. They often do events and programming together. And it's right here in downtown. It's just a few blocks walk from where most of these students are. So, things like that, these are opportunities literally in the backyard. And I would certainly, long-winded answer to your question, Mourad, but that's an easy way, I think, for students to get involved with some of the international opportunities that are here, and they can reflect that somehow on a resume, or at least will give them that background when they're interviewing for a job down the road.
No, very good, excellent. And we think going outside the country when we think of international experience, but as you said, you could have impactful career kind of focused experiences. Just to plug one thing, I know the Atlanta Global Studies Center, congratulations to the center on their grant but virtual exchange. That's something we have been doing at the Institute of International Business. I know the Atlanta Global Studies Center, where we actually have our students work collaboratively with students from around the globe, in South Africa, in Morocco, in Brazil, on projects. So we do no longer do the projects with peers in your classroom. We do these projects with peers all over the globe. So you get that flavor of the international kind of competency building, opportunities while you are still a student. So and Atlanta Global Studies Center, I think, has been leading in that area. Joshua, you want to add to that idea? Any ideas?
I think John covered it. Yeah, I think. I mean, I would just say that I don't know if any students are online or from other cities, but as long as there's somewhat of a metropolitan area, you're going to have a similar model to what John has referenced. To a greater or lesser extent. Kansas City certainly has a number of groups too. Before I was in Richmond, Virginia, it was similar. So yeah, just take advantage of what's in your backyard.
And I just chimed in there real quickly. I put in the chat Global Atlanta, if I can just chime in there as well. And Mourad, I'm sure you're all familiar with Global Atlanta. Global Atlanta is an online media publication that, as the name implies, focuses on global activities, global business, global cultural things in the metropolitan Atlanta area. It has on there a section, if you look on there, events. And a lot of these international events and things like that are there on the Global Atlanta site. It has news of what's going on. The Trevor Williams, who's the managing editor of that, is unbelievably outstanding as a journalist, and he posts all those things there. So I would just strongly recommend looking on there. I see your question there from Laura. Thank you. I see your question there from Laura. I think they just hired an intern, actually. But yeah, they do have interns. They, by the way, talk about backdoor. Their office is on Auburn, or is it Sweet Auburn? I mean, they're literally right there at Georgia State campus. So I highly encourage you looking at Global Atlanta. It's a host of information. In fact, I realize they also have a jobs page on here as well. So I mean, Trevor Williams just captures everything international. I don't know how he does it. But it's really a good source. So for folks who want to learn more about the international community, what's going on, I really encourage you to take a look at that.
And John, you'll be glad to know I make that a mandatory reading in my global business course. So we actually,
there you go.
Yes,
Trevor would be very happy to hear that.
Yes, I told him. I send a lot of people his way. They have to register, so he sees this uptick every semester.
every once in a while, I show up in there myself, but that's only when it's a slow news day.
Yeah. All right. I want to focus now on foreign languages, and what what recommendations you have for those who are either studying foreign languages, or are there any particular languages that you think are more critical today for work and for careers? Josh, I'm going to start with you on this for this question.
Well, thank you, Mourad. And so I would say, if you do plan to live abroad for your work, of course, whatever leg up you can get is very important, and that would include being able to communicate while you are somewhere. I mean, I've studied Spanish now for over 20 years, kind of off and on. It sort of ebbs and flows. I started, I guess it would have been in high school, but so that's not critical though, is the thing. You can learn it. So I think so much of what I've determined over time is there are things that you can learn and things that you can't learn. And the things that you can learn include subject matter expertise, include language, using different technology. And I would put those in one category as important and nice to have, but not necessarily essential to get started. And so I'd put language study in that category, with the caveat that if you're planning to live in another country where English is not spoken, of course, that's pretty important. If you're planning to work from the US and work in an international field, it can definitely give you a leg up and can be useful, but I don't actually know that I find it to be that essential kind of day to day. So yeah, but it's also a good way to engage culturally with another, kind of to John's earlier points, that can really help you connect with a different community in your area.
Yeah. But before I ask you, John, the same question, I want to make sure that our attendees remember they can post their questions in the chat, and I will keep monitoring the chat and taking some of those questions and sharing them with our panelists. If you have anything to add to that language question, John?
Yeah, I think Josh covered it. I would agree. You can learn it. It can be a leg up when you're out applying for a job. I think in particular, if it's an unusual language, that could be a leg up. But then, of course, also you're pigeonholing yourself into that particular area, which if that's a language that goes back to my earlier point, that might be what you like, and that's okay to be pigeonholed into that. I mean, my languages are French and German. The latter, I could always use work for me. The former, I'm okay with. It certainly helps. But to Josh's point, it's not. There are other factors out there, and I would say a general global awareness is significant. Now, many times, folks who do speak the language have the global awareness already, so that's a good thing. I mean, it's better than not. Let's say that. That's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but I agree with Josh. It's something you can learn if you really want to do it, and but if you've already gone down that path, keep at it. And I guess if you don't have any language skills at all and you haven't shown any interest in learning language skills, it might be difficult to convince a potential employer that you're really interested in international. So, I mean, at least have some of the effort there. But I don't think you need to be fluent, to be honest, unless you're really going to a job that requires that.
To your point, John,
capacity is good.
Excellent point. I do teach in China, the similar course, and sometimes I walk in and I know just a couple of sentences. So I'll start with ni hao, ni hao ma, and it's amazing how the setting changes when they see that you are trying. So sometimes just the perception that you are trying to connect.
That's exactly. Of course, the problem is they immediately start responding to you in Mandarin, and you're like, wait a minute, that's all I know. But no, they do. It is. As Josh, it's a cultural thing. They appreciate many regions will very much appreciate if you're trying it. And then bear in mind there are others, not to stereotype areas, but there are others who are perfectly fine speaking English. And one of the main reasons my German is not as good as my French is that when I get over to Germany, it's fairly evident early on that many times especially with someone considering coming to the US, their English is already probably better than my German, and they prefer just to go ahead and speak in the English. And so it's tough sometimes to go into German. Whereas in France, if you speak the French, they want you to speak French. Yeah. So it can vary, but yeah, you're right. It does help culturally, and as you're kind of doing that back and forth, any little bit helps, as I say.
Yes. Panida, you mentioned earlier, you have a competitive advantage, your language skill. And I think just to confirm, you said that was one of the reasons why you landed the job that you landed now, right?
So, so I'm originally from Thailand. So my native language is Thai and my second language is English. And also for this position as Eastern food corporation, they prefer like bilingual. Since the company has like the sourcing office back in Thailand. So basically, they want a person who can speak fluently Thai, and that's the most important. And also, they also require they offer like other languages too, like Chinese, Vietnamese, and I think study another language that would be a plus for you. And especially, for example, the Chinese, because there are so many companies, especially in their international company or international trade. Sometimes they prefer like bilingual, even a Spanish, Chinese, or Germany, or some like Japanese or Korean also. And I think study another language, like a third or second language, would be a plus, yes, for the students.
Very good, very good. I want to focus on your organizations, and I know many of the people who are with us are keenly interested to know more about these internationally focused groups. But what degrees are held in general, maybe at the Chamber or Global Commerce? What degrees are held by most of your colleagues there?
Ooh, wow!
And graduate degrees even needed. Yes.
I'm sorry.
And our graduate degrees also kind of needed. So
it depends on the role. And the first answer is it's a wide variety. The second answer depends on the role. We have folks within economic development who have business degrees, who have liberal arts degrees. It varies. We hired a life sciences person not long ago to work on our life sciences side. So he has a life sciences background So it really varies. I don't want to, I'm sorry to give a wishy-washy answer to you, but it does vary. The way and then of course, the public policy team would have degrees more in politics or something like that, perhaps government. The way we're structured in a nutshell, we've got within the chain, we have economic development, we have public policy, we have the sports division. And within economic development, there are three subsets to that. There's global commerce, which I do. There is project management, which, as the name implies, manages actual economic development projects, which could be any number of degrees. And then there's the ecosystem or industry cluster side. So I mentioned the life sciences person. Mourad, you mentioned a couple earlier, fintech, digital media. Some of these are ecosystems, and these are ecosystems from an economic development perspective that are objectively strong in Metro Atlanta. So our division has staff people on, we have experts on staff whose job is to know those ecosystems, those clusters up and down, inside and out. And so in that regard, it helps for our life sciences guy, for example, to have a life sciences background. And when he does that, for me and my team, we're more generalist. Our focus is on cross-border, on international, both inbound and outbound. And at this point, I'll clarify in case we can't get it in later, we do focus on outbound. We very much believe that international trade and investment is a two-way street. I know that Josh and the commercial service, obviously he's with the Trade Administration, but the U.S. Commercial Service and the Commerce Department, this is a common refrain. So the U.S. Commercial Service has both the Select USA, which is inbound, and then the trade side, which is outbound. The state of Georgia Department of Economic Development is structured in a similar vein. We are structured in a similar vein. And so my team will work on a generalist level, companies that are considering U.S. market entry, foreign companies that are considering U.S. market entry, U.S. market expansion. That requires a knowledge of coming into the U.S. and setting up there. But conversely, we also work with companies in that 29 county footprint that I referenced at the beginning that are considering going overseas. And indeed, we encourage them to consider going overseas. I'll put a link in here of our Metro Export Challenge that was just announced. And that's working with companies here that we're encouraging, with the help, by the way, of U.S. Commercial Service, the Georgia District Export Council, and our other partners, whom Josh knows, to encourage local SMEs, small medium enterprises, to go overseas. Again, it could vary by the companies. One you'll see is Sweetwater Brewery, which everybody probably knows, and another is a company I've never heard of. But the common knowledge thing there is that knowledge of the cross-border activity. And so that's where that plays in. My team member here, I don't believe, he has a graduate degree, but we have a couple here who don't have graduate degrees. And certainly we have an intern. I keep looking at the list of names here, but we have an intern we recently brought on from Georgia State. She was with the Georgia State International Studies Program. We mentioned her earlier. And she's just graduated undergraduate, and she's an intern with us and going through that process on the global commerce side. So again, it's a wide variety of both background and majors. I wouldn't pigeonhole any particular one.
Okay. Well, in the interest of time, I think we do have time for about one more question, reflective question here. And for both, maybe I'll start with you, Josh. How can students start preparing for global careers now?
Well, thanks, Mourad. I mean, definitely some of the examples that have been given, I think would be a good start. Also, just I kind of, this is a little bit self-serving, I put it in the chat, but just reach out and do informational interviewing with professionals, or it could be with Panida, it could be with people there at Georgia State who already have internships, maybe they've done an internship or if they've had some kind of success. You have a unique window, and I'm sure probably Career Services has told students this, but when you're a student, you really have kind of a window to where your people know when you reach out to them that you really just want to learn and you're curious, and they're happy to share. You know, once you're in the workforce and so on, it's a bit harder. I would be receptive to people reaching out to me, but I know sometimes it can be hard to make the time when you're working. Of course, students are busy too, but I would say take advantage of your time as a student to reach out and to make as many connections as you can, attend events, if you have a chance to study abroad. So those all kind of add up, because you never know really what's going to kind of put you on your path. And so I would say you definitely should cast a wide net and utilize the time and resources that you have at your disposal.
Well, I know Josh, you mentioned a few of these, but if you can kind of wrap up and share with the students, what advice would you give them now so that they can start preparing for a global career?
So you want me to, beyond what
John,
I was
I'm sorry, that was for
Oh, John, okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. No, well, again, what Josh said, we said throughout there, I think the easiest way for Georgia State students to do it, and I'm gonna do a minor wag of the finger to Panida, because we hate to see our students here leave Atlanta. And one of the things we love to do is see the Georgia State students, the Georgia Tech students, the SCAD and Oglethorpe and Emory, these wonderful, incredibly talented students that we are so fortunate to have in Atlanta. We want to see them stay here in Atlanta. Now, Maryland's lovely, by the way, so congratulations again. But you know, you do have Georgia State by being this tremendous urban university in the middle of one of the fastest growing metros in the U.S., which has, as Mourad, as you mentioned earlier on, has tons of international companies coming in. It has binational chambers. It's got 74 consulates, by the way. I didn't even mention that. Both career consulates, consulates general, and honorary consuls. It has a huge slew of international companies that are from all countries and all different sectors. You have a tremendous international resource right here that, quite frankly, a lot of other students in other universities don't have, just by virtue of their location. So I think Georgia State University is tremendously well suited by its location and by the student makeup it already has to avail themselves. The students can avail themselves of these opportunities right here in the backyard. And the number one piece of advice I would give is to look for those opportunities. We've covered many of them here. Look for those opportunities. We would love to see you all stay here. Maybe Panida will move back someday. We'd love to see you all find those jobs here in this area. Our employers would like to see it. Employers are always looking for talent. So take advantage of those resources that are here in your backyard that, frankly, a lot of other college students in other places don't have. And so that's something, it's a real benefit that Georgia State has. And I would just encourage you to avail yourself of it.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. And Panida, I'm going to give you a chance to share in 30 seconds or less your advice as a recent graduate and as someone who just secured an international focused job.
Okay. For me, I think if you know yourself, like what you want to do, just start applying and look for like jobs. And for me, let's say like in my daily life, right, when I do grocery shopping, and of course, and I'm from Asian country, so basically what I like to do is I when I do shopping, always see the label or stickers, who the importer, who the distributor, and actually for this position, I got this job because I start checking on each product. And of course, that's part of my interest also. And I think, okay, one day I think I want to work for this company because it's this company that import many products from Asian countries, from Thailand, from Vietnam, but majority from Thailand. So I think, okay. And then after I saw that, and then I checked the company, and then when they open position, so I apply. But don't give up. I applied for this company for 2 times, like twice. And then, okay, I got this job and I told them this story, and it's true. So I think this is, but again, I know myself, like what I want to do, since my previous job was a procurement manager. And that's one thing that I always do too when I do the grocery shopping. Who's the importer? Where did we get this from? Even back in Thailand or now in the US. So that's a part of international business. So you must have your curiosity. Oh, what you want to know, what you want to do, and then that start from. And then I got a job, and actually when I got a job interview, I shared this story. I share my story to their HR or even the VP of the company, and they're very impressed.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Panida. Excellent. Yeah, doing career planning at the grocery store. I love that. So, all right. I think we're actually right out of time, but we could have gone on for a few more hours. Thank you so much. Thank you, John, Josh, Panida, for sharing your time with us today and telling us about some wonderful resources, opportunities, thoughts, advice. We appreciate your valuable tips for our current students and recent graduates. Thank you for participating in the GSU Global Career Series. And we want to thank our audience, obviously, members for attending this session. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope you'll join us tomorrow at 1 p.m. to learn about teaching abroad. If you haven't registered, please use the link in the chat. You can see it now. Finally, I'd like to thank the Atlanta Global Studies Center, the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, the Andrew Young School of Policy Studies, the Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies program in Global Studies, Asian Studies, and Middle East Studies, and GS2 Study Abroad programs for organizing this series. Please check out more International Education Week events on the website in the chat. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure chatting with you, and I hope to see you again next year.
Thank you.
Thank you.